Hey guys, Zangetsu 134. Hey guys! Sorry about that. Uh, Hey guys, Zangetsu 134 here, bringing you another My Hero Academia vlog. And now we're up to episode 7 of season 3. I'm, surprised at how fast things are moving along. We're 7 episodes into this 26 episode series, and already we're getting into the meat of things. This brings to us the end of the summer training camp arc. It's a very small arc. And in some ways, I argue it probably isn't actually an arc. It's more like a mini arc, much like well, not maybe not the finals, but well, I guess in a way it's more like kind of a setup arc between the end of the finals arc and the Bakugo retrieval arc, as I like to call it. I'm sure, I think it's technically called the Hero Raid arc, but I think there's another Hero Raid that comes later, from my knowledge of what's to come in the later chapters. Because I'm not read ahead per se, but I know, bits and pieces of what happens later on. Not super a lot. For one, I don't know a lot about what happens after, or during the much later arcs, particularly the Culture Festival, and a lot of what I've heard called the 8 Precepts of Death arc. Although I know a little bit, I know who the main villain of that arc is. Because I mostly read from the manga when it's collected in the trades. That way I'm kind of, I can keep up with the anime, but in a way that won't put me so far ahead that I know a lot that's coming. But anyway, and so in this arc we see the end of the villain, the Vanguard squad Vanguard's attack on the training camp, which ends with, of course, with them getting Bakugo, as Compress had captured both Tokoyami and some of Todoroki's ice as decoys so they could get away with Bakugo, which they do. And you get some good moments, like you get Aoyama hitting Compress's mask off and hitting him so hard with his laser that he literally loses the marbles that he holds Tokoyami and Bakugo, which I actually really love. Compress's quirk, he's probably my favorite of the Vanguard Action Squad. He doesn't do a whole lot, but I like his quirk, and I love his magician's outfit. I love that he is a magician, and that, his whole thing is he makes things disappear via using his quirk. He actually uses it really cleverly here. When Dobby shoots his flames out, Dobby's like, use your quirk, and Compress shrinks himself down to the marble. And unlike everyone else who's immobilized, I'm assuming knocked out whenever they're reduced to a marble, or at least they're captured. They can't get out, but he can, because he can release the quirk whenever he wishes, by a snap of his fingers. So I really like his quirk. Probably the Vanguard Action Squad, I like his quirk. I like Dobby, design-wise and quirk-wise. I love the blue flames. The only other one I really like is probably Togata and Spinner. I have nothing against the other guys. I just, I think, Dobby, Compress, Togata, and Spinner have, the most personality. Nothing against Twice. I like Twice more for just how silly he is. He reminds me of Obito from, or not Obito, Toby. You know what, they're the same thing. Spoilers for those of you who haven't watched the ending of Naruto, but Toby and Obito are the same person. It's pretty friggin' obvious, because Kishimoto is not exactly the most subtle of writers. Then again, most shonen anime writers are not the most subtlest of writers. For example, there's a current chapter in the manga that I had finished reading in volume 12, and I totally called the twist in it. I'm not gonna say which, but if you've gotten to chapter 12, the volume 12 that I have, you could probably pretty much tell what the twist is either. I'm not gonna spoil it for people who are reading the manga as they go along, but it's pretty obvious. But anyway, and so it ends there, and we see the aftermath of the attack when the Vanguard Action Squad disappears thanks to the help of Kurogiri. And a lot of people like to say that, like, wonder who the 10th Vanguard Action Squad member was. I argue it was probably Kurogiri, as he's their getaway vehicle. He would always be a part of the Vanguard squads, no matter what. And in probably some ways, he's probably a second leader of the group, as he's arguably Tomura Shigaraki's second in command. Okay, he's technically the second in command to Tomura, and Tomura second in command to Sensei, as he calls him. Yeah, I know. I probably shouldn't, but like, I don't want to spoil things for this arc too much. And so for the most part, we see the fallout. We see all the injuries. We for one, Jiro and Hagakure, the Invisible Girl and Earphone Jack, if you don't know their names, are knocked out due to the effects of Mustard's gas. Actually, I think 15 people were injured via his gas. Several with injuries. Like we see Siu getting her tongue patched up. Momo was knocked out via an attack by the 6-armed Nomu. And she suffered a concussion. And we, of course, see what happens to Midoriya. Which I feel bad for Midoriya because he spends like two days like just in like a fever-induced coma. Like due to the pain and fever from like I guess getting infections from running around in the woods with his arms all broken and bloody. That or just the pain was so bad it actually made his immune system falter and he got like a fever. It's never really made clear why he had a fever, but I could argue. I mean, you could argue a lot of things. Probably the most likely is he got like an infection of some sort because his arms were not only exploded like they usually are, like they get cooked, but he also kept using One For All in his exploded arm to the point where like you can actually see like the skin tear. And normally he only gets skin tearing in his hand, because he's punching something and the force only with like punching, but it's all centered on his knuckles and back of his hand will often tear the skin off just from his attack. And so we see him. We see the effects of how his mom came to visit him. She peeled an apple for him, which is very stereotypical shonen fare where someone is in the hospital and someone's peeling an apple. I don't know if that's like a Japanese thing. I'm assuming that's a culture thing that I don't get, but maybe it is, and I've never understood the apple thing because I know I've seen Sakura peel Sasuke an apple when he was in the hospital before the Sasuke retrieval arc started. A lot of retrieval arc stuff. But yeah, and really this episode mostly just talks about stuff that will come up later in the series, much later in the series, actually. For one, this is where the first time we get that there's a mole in UA, which I don't think is... this is chapter 60 or 70, and they're now on chapter 180 something, and we still haven't seen who the mole is. Which is weird, because I think it's only in this episode and the very end of the series, the very end of this season will they probably bring up the mole again. Well, I say very end of the season because I'm assuming this is going to end with them going to the UA dorms. I'm not gonna feel like that's a major spoiler that due to this they decide that it would be better for the kids to be in the dorms so that they can keep an eye on them and make UA a boarding school instead of just a typical high school. Which I don't really find that much of a big spoiler. It's more or less just establishing a new status quo, which I don't really consider that big of a spoiler because it's just a change in the status quo, not like a big revelation or like a huge plot point. But yeah, so they do establish that they show the effects of the constant attacks by the the League of Villains, from the USJ attack to the Nomu attack to the fact that Midoriya was attacked by Tomura when they went to the mall to get their stuff in Kiyoshi Ward. But yeah, and so. We see the fallout of that, and we see that was one of Tomura's plans. We get a really great scene where All Might feels terrible that that he wasn't able to be there with them because he felt it would be better for him to stay back in case the villains were, because he figured he was the target. He didn't expect Tomura's plan to be making UA look bad in general. And so All Might felt coward. It felt like he was a coward for doing that. And for those of you wondering, he says, "I was in the bath. I was soaking in the tub." Which I'm like, like at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if there was much you could have done. Oh my, this was a pretty tactical, thought out plan. I doubt there was much you could do to stop everything. Granted, there may have been less casualties, but you probably would have ended up having to fight the Nomu again or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, he's, as the symbol of peace, he feels he failed, and so when he gets a call from his detective friend, whose name I don't remember because he doesn't show up a lot, but his detective friend and his friend on the force calls him and says, we have some ideas of where the Vanguard task force may be, because someone saw Dabi enter the bar that they have as their hideout, and so that reinvigorates All Might's drive to save Bakugo, and so which is, I really like how they do how it's brought, like how it's showing he's getting his confidence back by reinflating himself with the embers of One for All, and and he basically says, when we see them again, this will be what I will say to them: I am here to counterattack. And I really love how All Might can use his "I am here" He's like, normally he uses that to tell people, it's all right, you're safe now, I'm here, and I will protect you, and I will stop these villains. Or like when the USJ attack happened, and he saw all these kids in fear of this villain attack, and it made him super angry. He doesn't say the "I am here" to the villains, or to the kids, he says it to the villains as he rips his tie off and goes, "I am here, and I'm here to defeat you, and make you pay for hurting my precious students. And this here is, I'm here to counterattack, and I'm going to get Bakugo back." They bring up a lot of other plot points that will be more important for this arc, particularly the fact that UA feels that if Bakugo is kidnapped because of his violent nature from the sports festival, and if Bakugo is in fact convinced to go over to the side of the devils instead of staying on the side of the angels, that would be a major downfall for UA, because they failed to prevent a new supervillain from being born. And, they're already on thin ice. And that's a major plot point for the arc, even though I think the kids themselves don't really feel that way. As well as Ida's character growth, which I actually think is one of the better parts of this arc, particularly Ida wanting to prevent Todoroki and Kirishima from using the tracker that Yayorozu developed, which, for those of you that wonder what that button was that was placed on the Nomu, Yayorozu actually created a tracking device that she put onto the Nomu, and created a tracker that will receive the signal and will allow All Might and the police to find him, which I actually really like. I like that Yayorozu got to do something important, and it shows how much she's grown since her finals. As well as the fact that, she gets convinced by Todoroki and Kirishima to make a new tracker. Which I find interesting because, she feels like she didn't do enough. It's still a part of her feelings of inferiority. Because even though she's one of the best students in the class, she's the second best student behind Ida, she feels that she's not nearly as good, especially when she compares herself to Todoroki, who was the other hero, student that got in on recommendation. I couldn't say the word. I'm bad with words today. First my voice cracks, and then I cough. Let's just do the gamut. Maybe I'll burp and fart at the same time too. And so she feels that she got in on recommendations, but she's not done enough to live up to those recommendations, and also her family's nobility. Which is a thing in Japanese culture. The thing of what a lot of tokusatsu I've watched have used is this thing known as noblesse oblige, which is a idea that nobility have an obligation to help the common man as they are in a higher position. That nobility is not about being rich and looking down upon others. It's about being rich and using your resources and nobility to help the common man, which is an interesting ideal, especially, which also makes a lot of sense in Japanese cultures. They're much more about the group than the individual, unlike, say America, where we're all about the individual and less about the group, which, in our current day and age shows a lot about us. But anyway, I'm not going to get. But I really love that with Yaoi It's also why she's kind of became a favorite of mine. I really like her struggles to try and get over her inferiority complex, and well as trying to be a good hero and living up to the ideals that her family and Todoroki has set for her. Getting back to Ida for a moment, I kind of skipped over him, but I really like that he has learned his lesson from his attempts to bring down Stain on his own to avenge his brother. And I like that he tries to prevent Todoroki and Midoriya and Kirishima from doing something foolish, because he doesn't want them to lose their chances of being students, because, what they're doing is illegal for the most part, because they're not pro heroes, they don't have licenses. And so this is a very foolish thing that they're doing. But at the same time, I can't help but really enjoy the scene. We see Ida, like, he very much wants to help as much as he doesn't want to help. And it's also where we finally get to see some more character development for Kirishima as well. I forgot to bring that up, but this is probably where I think most people kind of become fans of Kirishima, as he basically says, I'm going to use this because while everyone else was fighting, while Midoriya broke both his arms again, I was doing nothing. I stood by with the rest of the boot camp students, and I did nothing. Which, to be fair, he wanted to do something, but Vlad and Aizawa basically made a call that said, we only wanted you kids to fight so you could all get to one place and we could protect you that way better. And we failed, but we still prevented casualties. We may have had a student kidnapped, but we didn't have any casualties. Although, well, I say that, but technically Ragdoll has gone missing, and she clearly lost a lot of blood. So we don't really know what happened to Ragdoll yet. So, and Kirishima feels like he did nothing, and, he could have done more, and that's why he wants to help get Bakugo back. I mean, and you could probably obviously tell from here that clearly they're going to eventually, disobey, and they're going to go off and try and rescue Bakugo at the cost of their own safety. And that's where the episode ends. So yeah, it's more or less just kind of a small cooldown period in between a major arc and the next, and I think it's very good. We see a lot of character moments. I completely forgot to talk about Midoriya's arc here too. We see more of Midoriya's continuing arc to feel like he's, he still has so far to go as a hero, but he tries to be better every little bit he can. This here being that, he remembers All Might's words about a hero can't reach everyone, so I try to reach everyone, or I try to get everyone that I can reach within my reach. And he feels, like that is how Sensei was right. I can only save one person, and then I'm completely done. Even though really he's only done because Muscular exceeded his current strength level. If he had trained, if he were trained more and trained better, he probably would have been able to defeat Muscular without breaking both his arms. And so, Bakugo was within his reach, and because he shattered his arms to the point of being useless, he couldn't do anything. And so that's one of the reasons what will spur him on to probably, go with Kirishima and Todoroki. Which I'm sure is obvious to everyone, because, it's not, because Midoriya is the main character. He can't just sit in the hospital while all the important stuff's going on. So yeah, we basically get a new story arc, which is going to be divided up between the students' attempts to rescue Bakugo and All Might's attempts to find the villain task force and defeat them. So yeah, all in all, I think it's a good episode. Like I said, it's very much a transition episode. I know I've said probably transition episode a lot in these last couple episodes, but it's mostly because like it's very much we're moving on from one story arc to the next, which I think this story arc is going to be much longer. At least I think it will be. We shall see. But anyway, guys, I think that's going to be it for this episode. I think it's really good. I think it's important to watch because if nothing else, it lets you know, it lets you see what's the setup for the next arc. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. I'm Zangetsu 134, and I will be back next time with a new episode of Kamen Rider Build. So look for that. I'm going to probably post it Wednesday because that's my next day off, and I'm going to take it from there. So until then, guys, I'm Zangetsu 134. I will catch you next time. Take care.